Welcome back to Learning the Tarot. Today we are talking about the Two of Wands. So in doing my notes for this series, and obviously my notes for the Book of Shadows, I realized that one of the sources that I had, that I talked about last time, I'm not going to use it. Already I was like, no, I will do a full review of it at some point, because again, I'm working through all the books we own, but like, this is not one that like, as I'm needing a resource, it is not helpful. So it's the one that was the like tarot theory and practice, and when I went to the section for the card meanings, it constantly was like, we need to go refer to like the appendix, which was obnoxious. But when I went to the appendix, it was like only how that card interacts with other cards, as in if you wanted to do like a daily card pull, or you wanted to do just a single card pull for whatever your question is, because a good reader and a good resource would be able to have it so that one card could answer your question to some degree at least. And of course, if you want more clarity, then you can pull more, but any deck should be set up so that you can, and any guidebook should be set up so that if you pull that individual card, it can answer for the most part, right? It didn't. It was like maybe a sentence, if that, not really that helpful. And then when you go, it only was how the minor interacted with other cards. And it was like for specific situations too. And it was like, this is extremely unhelpful, actually. So I can see why it looked brand new, because my mother-in-law, that was her thing. She was really into tarot. And so it's like, okay, so the books that are well-worn are probably my best bet. And that one, I was like, you know what? I flipped through a few of them and I was like, this is not worth my time. So I shelved it. That said, I actually got kind of close to doing the same thing with Solitary Witch, because that one, compared to the other two books, it did not have nearly enough information, which is something I knew I would come across when using that book, because realistically, it can't have everything. And the stuff it does have, I knew it was going to be surface level, but actually sitting down and comparing it to other books just on the one topic of tarot, it's like, wow, like this section was not nearly as helpful. The other ones are giving you like huge explanations, whereas little teeny tiny little blob of text. That said, let's move on to actually talking about the card. Now, like I said, I'm not reading my notes verbatim this time. I feel like the tarot is so overly saturated. Honestly, I don't know how much I'm going to be adding to this conversation. And I know that it's like, it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, I like to have like certain creators that I follow, I would love to hear their particular perspective on stuff. But also at the same time, as a creator, you're like, wow, how many pages in the search am I going to be on? And also YouTube adjusted their like search option a while ago. So it only shows like a handful, like 20 videos, and then it kicks into a different search. And it's really obnoxious, so like, you gotta hope the algorithm works for you, which is really annoying. So anyways, all of that said, if you managed to get here, hello. So we're gonna talk about my opinions and what I'm thinking about the card when I go to look at analyzing it as of now. So when I got to this card, because I did notes for the next 10, because I figured like getting just like the basics down. So I guess the first 10 of the wands, not the next 10, because I haven't moved into the like page, knight, queen, king, those. Haven't gotten there yet. But I did ace through 10. So anyways, as I was going through my notes, I slowly started to see that for the most part, there kind of is a story that goes with the cards. And I don't know if it's how these two books kind of set it up, but especially in The Idiot's Guide to the Tarot, it feels like we're on a journey. And I kind of like that, because you see that a lot with the major arcana, which is where I initially started this series eons ago. But this round we're not, because I wanted to be different this time. But like, normally it's like the major is the one that has the story. The minor often just kind of gets tossed aside. And it's like, it just talks about like different parts of life, whatever. But like, it literally walks you through this journey. And it was like, this is so interesting. Because specifically, that book talked about how if it's like right side up, you're like looking forward with anticipation, and like you've got like this journey ahead of you, and it feels like you're kind of collecting your sticks as you go, kind of a thing. Whereas if it's reversed, like the imagery, because again, both of them use the Rider-Waite as like the main deck of choice, because it's the most popular, most people are aware of it. But the stick is like falling away from him, and it's like you're taking a step back and you need to go back into the knowledge and the wisdom and the lessons of the ace versus moving forward in the journey. And it was like, oh, that's a really interesting take. Because again, I'm looking at this and these are like, this particular set, like the wands, the suit of stuff, this one, I didn't really anticipate how much it would feel like, because I always think of like coins or pentacles or whatever they want to call it, the earth one, basically. I always would think of that one as like work and money and like that kind of stuff. And then it's like, oh, so that's the wands. So like, it's really interesting. And I guess maybe it's more of like career stuff and like projects, but like for me, all of that is in one, because creativity, job, and money are like the same thing, because I work doing this and writing to pay my bills, and like that is my job now. That's what I do as a living. And so it's really, it's kind of weird to see it and like looking at it and being like, how could that apply? And like, how many times have I seen these cards and not really known them? Which is why I feel like as good of a like theory it is, because that's how I was taught to learn the tarot, is you just pull cards and then eventually you learn them. And like, while that can be helpful, I don't think it gave me the answers that I really needed and like the knowledge I really needed. And like, it kind of works for some things, like oracle decks, I feel like that works a little bit better because you just have to learn their particular system. And honestly, I feel like they're a little bit easier than learning the tarot system as a whole. And like, it's a lot now because like, wow. And when you look at the individual decks, like their guidebooks, they're all very different. So I feel like this part of like learning the series is like, we're just getting the baseline. And like, I don't know, it was really interesting. Because in like the Modern Witchcraft Book of Tarot, that one with the long name, that one was more of like, you're starting on this journey and like of this project. Or on the opposite side, if it's reversed, it's more of like a delay, or maybe that project isn't gonna happen. I do like how both of those books though always include very detailed descriptions for the upright and the reversed of each card. Like seriously, those two books, if you were looking into tarot, again, as somebody who's also a beginner, kind of, again, I've read cards, but I usually will have to refer to the guidebook, and I just kind of read it more as an oracle deck. Whereas now I'm trying to learn the tarot so that like, no matter what, if they just show two sticks, I will know what it means. Like, because some decks, they put all the effort into the major and then you get to the minor cards and it's like, oh, okay, so like we just stopped trying at this point. Cool. So anyways, I really love these two like books. I feel like they're really covering the information so well, and like it's such a good resource to have. So like if you're just beginning too, these are the books you should go grab. And when it comes to Silver's book, The Ultimate Book of Shadows for the Solitary, but the really, really long title by Silver Ravenwolf, the big book of hers, it didn't seem to fit, because like hers is like, it's a new partnership using leadership to solve communication difficulties, meetings, conflict, success, using one's initiative to overcome obstacles. Like, it didn't really fit the other two books. The other two books, they approached it slightly differently from each other, but you got the general idea of the card. Whereas Silver just, it was kind of just like this off the wall, like random thing, and you're like, okay. And that's not me putting it into bullet points, that's how it is. Because it literally, I copied these word for word because it's my own Book of Shadows, and like nobody else is gonna see it, so it's fine for me to just type it up and format it the way that works for me and shove it in my book of convenience. Because seriously, trying to go to my bookcase of absolute chaos when I need something, it's not working. So I need it printed in one spot where it's organized in the way that works for me. Hers is just like this really weird little list of stuff, and it doesn't really explain anything. And again, it's already a big book, so it makes sense that it's brief, but also the other two books are just so much better that I'm like, am I going to continue with that book? Probably, but it does make me wonder if she's gonna have more for the major versus the minor, which is also like, really? Because again, all of these cards should hold equal value when you're trying to learn them. So anyways, the way I'm looking at the Two of Wands is basically that this is the continuation from card 1. It's a journey. And so basically if you pull this card, I would assume it would be something like, if you had a project of any variety, it means to like continue on what you're doing and to start taking actions towards it. So anyways, that is my thoughts for this card. I would love to hear your takeaways on this one, how you interpret the Two of Wands. Again, this is like my very baseline beginner level. of like, I'm just starting to research into these, so I would love to hear yours, especially for people who have read for a while, how you look at them in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.